What's up, y'all? DT2 Comics Chat here on a Rant Room Live. Now, I posted a tweet earlier today, and that tweet got me to thinking. It made me realize a couple of things. Now, I know we always have a lot to say about how they characterize our favorite characters, how they pull in their supporting characters, their supporting crew, how they deal with their lore and their mythology. Okay. But that's not necessarily, well, I will say maybe that's 50% of the problem. If they really want to understand what the issue is, how they frame our favorite characters is definitely part of the issue, but it's only half of the issue. Here's the other half. The other half is they keep platforming characters that nobody cares about. They have officially moved into making movies for themselves and not making movies for an audience. Now, it wasn't always that way, or else the MCU wouldn't have had the success that it had if that was always the case. But they most definitely now are just putting on their favorites or putting on obscure characters or putting on characters that nobody cares about. And I'm like, why do you keep platforming? Not only do you not rightfully represent the characters that we love, because as soon as they announced Robert Pattinson as Batman, that just knocked me right out of it. I do not see Batman when I see him on the screen. And I don't care who that offends, because the job of an actor is to disappear into the character and convince you for those 2 hours that they're that person. Now, some people loved it. As soon as they announced it, I was like, nope, because they always do that. They always, at least for me, talk about a long-standing character, talking about a character that people do love or someone we want to see for a very long time. And then they get the absolute worst person to play, the last person in the world that I'd want to play them. Just like with Batfleck. Batfleck, I have two conflicting opinions. I'm objective enough to be able to say that Ben Affleck's Batman is almost a perfect representation of the pre-Dark Knight Returns Batman, and in terms of his action sequences, in terms of how he moves on the screen, he's the best live action representation of Batman in that aspect we've ever had. Except I can't stand Ben Affleck as Batman. And when I look at the screen, I see Ben Affleck in a Batman costume. Now, I know that's just me, and I know that's my problem. I'm just telling you how I see it. I want to see actors that go away when the character's on the screen and they convince us that they are that character. For example, Benedict Cumberbatch. He convinced me he was Doctor Strange. I did not see Cumberbatch when I saw him on the screen. I actually saw Strange. See, that's the experience I want to have all the time. And that experience seems to be the exception rather than the rule. So that's that part. But as I said, the other half is the fact that they keep platforming characters that don't nobody care about but them, making movies for themselves. So when I put out this tweet, which I will now pull up, I'm saying to myself, why couldn't they do something like this? Why couldn't they just simply do a focus group or put out a tweet or ask fans what it is that we want to see? I'm not saying that Twitter is the representation of all fans everywhere. I know that's not true, but it could at least be a ground level starting point to get some kind of idea, especially if you're going to platform obscure characters. Which ones do the fans want to see? Okay. Again, I know Twitter is not perfect, but there are a lot of good comic people on Twitter. There are a whole lot. What's up, Eric? There are a whole lot of really good comic people on Twitter, and I follow many of them and I interact with them. And I just love the interaction. It's like having a Comic-Con that never ends on Twitter when you get together with people that are knowledgeable and people that love the characters and love the story worlds like you do. So if they did something as simple as putting out a tweet just to see what kind of responses they get. So that's what I did. I said, in either the Marvel or the DC multiverse on film, who would you like to see show up or come back? I let off with Jack of Hearts. Holy cow, Jack of Hearts. What a perfect character to showcase power, tragedy, the weight of your powers being a curse if they're going to do Marvel Zombies. His power being able to cure the zombie infection. Can you not see there's so much potential with this character, with Jack of Hearts? I mean, it can be like the Bill Bixby Hulk, the Jekyll and Hyde thing. It can be like so many different characters where their powers are a burden. That's who he is. He's tailor-made for that type of drama. So can you see the kind of weight a character like that could carry, especially if you want to marry it with zombies, because everybody loves zombies. Okay. Next, I pulled up my favorite DC team besides the Justice League, and that's the Legion of Superheroes. Lord have mercy. They can't even get the Legion right in animation, no less live action. But if we got somebody at Amazon Prime, or if we got somebody at Max or HBO Max or whatever they're calling themselves, who really got this group, the Legion of Superheroes is the perfect group for today's vibe, because they're teenagers, because they come from all different worlds, because they have all different powers and motivations for being in the Legion. You especially need to read Mark Waid's work on the Legion of Superheroes. It is phenomenal. It will blow your mind the way he frames the Legion. They will be perfect for a weekly show or a limited miniseries, like Secret Invasion is running 6 episodes. You know, when we have 6, 8 episodes or whatever, the Legion of Superheroes would be perfect for that. Now, I know that would be a heavy budget show, but that's why we need, some big guns. That's why we need the big people with Amazon or HBO. You could start with the 3 core characters, Saturn Girl, Lightning Lad, and Cosmic Boy, and build from there. They could be our core. Saturn Girl wouldn't cost that much to showcase her powers because she's a telepath. You could start with those 3, and you could add in characters as you needed. You could have episodes that focused on one character. You could do a final episode, big blowout scene where you spend all the money in production. And they're teenagers, so they have all that angst going on as well. Again, the Legion of Superheroes is so right. Okay. Now, Eric is saying, let me put that on the screen. Eric is saying, I would love to see Martian Manhunter. John is my favorite alongside Superman, and he has not really been given his due. I agree with all that. All that. If you don't know anything about Martian Manhunter, if you don't know anything about the Martians in the DC universe, they have all the powers that Superman has plus more. They have telepathy. They have shape-shifting. They have a weight and density control. They have so many things that Martians can do. They actually have total molecular control. You understand? So John and the Martians, and then they have a civil war built in, the green Martians versus the white Martians. So I agree completely with Eric that Martian Manhunter is so underrated and so underplayed and has not been given his due on the big screen. We get what amounts to cameos in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and John deserves more than that. But my point is that he's a more interesting character than what we've seen. Now, I know they had a version of him on Supergirl, but notice I say a version of him because that was such a watered down version of John and the Saturnians. Yeah, they also have the Saturnians. And at the end of Krypton, if you remember Krypton, we got a hint that Darkseid was coming, and it was incredible. And then they ended the show. So they just teased it. At first, I thought it was Thanagarians, but then I saw it was Darkseid's minions, and there were so many places Krypton could have gone. Then they canceled that show. So yeah, I will always be an advocate for the Legion of Superheroes because the possibilities are unlimited. Then we get to the Micronauts. Now, I know there's some Micronauts content coming our way, but they should have been on TV. I know Marvel had the rights back, but I don't want to see a Micronauts movie because that wouldn't be enough of them for me. I want to see a series because once again, if you know anything about the Micronauts, and they have the closest thing to a Darth Vader clone in Baron Karza than you'd ever want to imagine. And so many things could be done. It's almost like a Tron situation, like they have their world at micro size and the world that they're escaping from and running through the galaxy, and then coming over into our world and dealing with everything that comes with that. And Baron Cars are always trying to invade this space. I mean, again, it's high drama and their inner conflict. Now, I'm going to break some rules here, and I'm going to say that I would love to see a Micronaut show, at least scripted, or at least a dialogue written by Joss Whedon. Now, I know his name is Mud. I know he's, done some terrible things. I'm not talking about his personal life. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about his skill as a professional. Can you imagine, because it could be like another Firefly, can you imagine Whedon writing the Micronauts? Holy cow, holy cow. I know the man's name is Mud, but I would just love to see him doing that. Because again, there's so much potential, because there are worlds within worlds of the Micronauts. If you don't know anything about the Micronauts, they started off as toys, and then they gave them a comic book line. So it was really kind of cart before the horse, or reversing the order. And then they wrote this incredible storyline with so much drama and conflict, and we cared and we tapped into it. So I'd love to see that. Again, not a movie. I don't want a Micronauts movie. That's just me. I want a TV series, okay, that can really showcase each one of their characters, personalities, worlds, motivations. And like I said, if Whedon wrote it, if at least he wrote the dialogue, if nothing else, it would be phenomenal. Then, of course, the long-standing one, Lord have mercy. Now, I'm just going to throw something out before I take this drink of water. We got Jane Foster Thor before we got Beta Ray Bill. I just want you to let that hit. I'm going to say that one more time. We got Jane Foster Thor before we got Beta Ray Bill. I'm still reeling from that. When you get to the point where your main star says, I don't want to do this anymore unless there's a change in tone, because that's exactly what Hemsworth said. A whole lot of people liked Thor Ragnarok. I did not. Because once you make Thor a comic character, once you make the God of Thunder being taken down by a lightning shock, by an electric burst, really? Nobody saw the problem with that. So once again, I understand when things are setting precedents, and I understand where they're going to go after they do something ridiculous. And I knew after making Ragnarok so comic heavy, I knew they were going to take it too far. And Thor Love and Thunder, of course, to the point, again, where I said Hemsworth himself said he didn't want to be Thor anymore unless there's a change in tone. That doesn't tell you anything. That doesn't tell you that making Thor a comedic figure was the wrong thing. Now, Eric is saying Ragnarok killed the MCU for me on many levels, and I agree. It was there for me a little bit before that, but that was the nail in the coffin on so many things, because Thor is not supposed to be funny. It was exploitative. It was humiliating. It was a bunch of things that I was like, what is the point? Once again, are you trying to destroy the character? Are you trying to destroy the fans that have loved Thor for decades? Which brings me back again to my point that we should have had Beta Ray Bill. How do we not have Beta Ray Bill in live action? Beta Ray Bill is a Simonson creation, which is why he's so powerful. And basically, Walt Simonson said, what if an alien that looked like a horse? What if an alien that wasn't pretty? What if an alien that didn't have the classic, Norse features got the power of Thor? Okay, and Beta Ray Bill came out of nowhere, and such a brilliant creation. I can't make you understand. You need to read some of his earliest appearances, because Beta Ray Bill is something else. And I love Stormbreaker, the real Stormbreaker, not the one we saw in Endgame, where, Groot is the handle and is big. Not that. The real Stormbreaker that Odin forged for Beta Ray Bill, because he proved himself worthy which is why he was able to retain the powers better rebuilt, is so incredible. Okay, so let me take a look at what some other answers I got. Let me take a look at what some other people said. Look at this. Comic Canon Revival said Quasar, Wendell Vaughn Quasar. He's cool because he doesn't have dogfighting test pilot energy. He's not Hal Jordan. He has spaceway surfing stoner energy. It's sorely needed. I thought that was such a good point, because what a contrast to build into what we normally see if we see somebody basically being a cosmic stoner. How could that not be great? How could he not be a great foil or a great balance to other heroes? Okay, Thomas Mallory. Let's check this out. Rom, the Space Knight. If you don't know anything about Rom, another toy, someone that got trapped inside the armor and had to learn how to, so basically kind of like a space RoboCop. Not quite that, but the same kind of idea. Kind of that mixed with Silver Surfer. You get coated with something that you can't ever take off. So what does that do to you? Okay, psychologically. Okay, Hercules, there's the historical Greek and Roman versions, Heracles or Hercules, and then there's the Marvel version that draws from that, and then there's a DC version where both Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel get their powers from. But Hercules is one of those evergreen characters, like you never get tired of his adventures. Okay, and so, oh my goodness, the new gods, Kirby, the new gods. And if we saw the real Eternals and Mr. Miracle and Orion and that whole, oh my goodness. See, now the real new gods and the real Eternals and the real Orion and the real Darkseid would be epic comic book fantasy. Epic stuff. This is literally Game of Thrones in space. One more time. Game of Thrones in space. Just imagine that. Lord have mercy. Okay, and Monel. Now, we've had Monel on Supergirl, and again, that was a version of Monel. I would like to see the real Monel in the Legion. Okay? And so Eric says the new gods are awesome, which is 100% completely the truth. They are. And that's another one where if you have money, and Calabac was always one of my favorites to see Superman fight. Yeah, see, when Superman fights characters from Apocalypse, I believe that tension. I believe that danger, because they're so strong and they're so deadly. See, I believe that when I see that. I believe that Superman has a worthy opponent, someone he can't just wipe away with a blast of heat vision. So I'm saying there's so much potential. Lord have mercy, there's so much potential if they were to do the new gods. Okay? Now, if I couldn't possibly agree with anything more, I agree with this right here. Jessica Drew in live action. If you know anything about Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, she's always been my favorite version of Spider-Woman, and she was the original version of Spider-Woman. We've had many Spider-Women since then, and all of them have been Caucasian or Hispanic. I want to see Jessica Drew, the original, in live action. Haven't seen her yet. Now, we did get Jess Drew in Across the Spider-Verse in animation form, and she was Black and pregnant, and Spider-Woman has a whole having a baby storyline. But see, Jessica Drew is an even deeper undercover agent subject than Natasha Romanoff. Jessica Drew's leisure is gushing red. Her loyalties, I mean, she's such an interesting character. She would be so great to write, because she's the kind of character where you can't ever really be sure whose side she is on, because she's normally on her own side in a deeper way than MCU Natasha. Now, you do know that MCU Natasha is not real Natasha. That's not the real Black Widow from the comics. That's a watered down version to make the story work, because most moviegoers wouldn't accept the real Natasha. Okay, if you knew anything about Black Widow's real backstory, same with Elektra. If you wonder why Elektra didn't work on screen, because that wasn't Elektra. Okay, so Jessica Drew would be the character to give us the mutated powers, give us the double agent life, give us the conflict, the inner conflict and the outer conflict with shifting loyalties. And she's so mysterious. You never really know what she's thinking. So she would be perfect Even if we did like a 7-episode miniseries, okay, she'd be perfect for that. Okay, so they say they want the Fantastic Four, this version of the FF, to come back, and then the Pierce family, the Black Lightning family, which would be really, really cool. I don't know how we would work them in now if we're going to be transporting CW characters into the main DCEU, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying we would have to have an across the board kind of thing, or we could do a multiverse kind of thing, but the multiverse is kind of getting played out now, I'm sad to say. Now, Jason Munier says he wants the Avengers Quicksilver back. I do too. It would be very nice to have Pietro back because the way he went out was so bad. And the Royal Flush Gang in live action, I love them. They've always been some of my favorite DC villains. And then there's that whole thing in the future that the 10 of the future have with Batman Beyond, have with Terry. Lord have mercy. I can't tell you what that whole story arc did to me. Because Terry fell in love with her hard, and it's something else. You got to watch those episodes of Batman Beyond if you've never seen them. Magneto, Brainiac, Galactus, Kyle Rayner, yes to all those. The Heckler and Firehawk, yes. Okay, now the Inhumans. This is another one where I've been saying for years. Okay, Eric says he'd like to see a Fantastic Four with Spider-Man. I agree with that because that's where Spider-Man started. His longest running connection to the families of Marvel and to the Marvel Universe is the Fantastic Four. And Spider-Man is an honorary member if you didn't know that. Okay? And so the Inhumans deserve another chance. They were written poorly. They were conceived poorly. They were cast poorly. And then the execution was embarrassingly bad. I think it was the second or the third episode, they shaved Medusa's head. Lord have mercy. If you're going to use such a trope of, once again, robbing the character completely of their powers, that should have been the cliffhanger ending of the first season. You know, the only one I liked was Lockjaw because I love Lockjaw. Now, they have changed his origin and retconned him and made him a dog, and they did that in the comics, but originally Jack Kirby's design and idea, Lockjaw is not a dog if you didn't know that. Lockjaw is not actually a dog. Lockjaw is a humanoid that looks like a dog because he actually has a mustache in his original incarnations. So there's a lot you could do with that. But the Inhumans absolutely deserve another chance with someone that knows them and gets them and knows how to present them. And they need to be disconnected from trying to become the X-Men, since now Marvel has had the rights for the X-Men for a while now. So we don't need to make the Inhumans substitute X-Men. That's a mischaracterization of who they are. And they're their own state, they're their own people, and they have a lot of beef with regular humans and with Earth people because of the way they've been treated. There's a lot of stuff there, but it's not like the X-Men, okay? They're not apologizing for being what they are, okay? They think more like Magneto than the X-Men. And then finally, wait a minute. No, not finally. Okay, I got some more. I thought this was the final one. I cannot agree more with Alpha Flight. Lord have mercy. I've been waiting for years to see Alpha Flight in live action. Alpha Flight is so tight. Can you imagine? Once again, can you imagine? You see what I'm saying? Do you see why they ought to be doing even simple Twitter polls to try to get the pulse of what's happening with fans? Because all of these suggestions are gold. And even if we're going to mount obscure characters, mount interesting ones, and get people to write and direct them that understand what makes them tick, that understands their dynamics, because Alpha Flight is basically Canada's Avengers. Not quite there. They're kind of more like the Avengers combined with the X-Men. But the idea behind them is that on some level, they are deputized by the country, which is why you have Guardian, or whatever version of Guardian has the Canadian flag as his costume or her costume when it's Heather. Okay, Booster and Beetle, I cannot agree with this more. If you want to go funny, Booster and Beetle is the way to go. You know who I want to play Booster and Beetle? Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk. That is Booster and Beetle incarnate. That show would be gold. First of all, you automatically capture all the Firefly fans, say that 3 times fast, by getting Fillion and Tudyk back on the screen together. But having them play off each other as well as they did like on Firefly, but as Booster and Beetle, that's another gold mine. Another gold mine. Okay? So let me see. No, about some other stuff. So let me see the other suggestions. I get they say they want to see Ghost Rider in the MCU. Ghost Rider deserves to be in the MCU. So I hope you see my point with all this. We have incredible characters that deserve a platform, that need to be mounted, that we have wanted to see for a very long time. So again, I wish they would at least ask the fans, ask the comic book people on Twitter, who do you want to see? Because all of these suggestions that we talked about today would be incredible to show up, and they would be TV gold. All right. That's the end of this rant. I will see you on the next Rant Room. I have plenty of videos coming. I had to talk about the Flash movie so much. I got another group video coming. Across the Spider-Verse is coming. And then obviously my weekly review of Secret Invasion. So stay tuned to this channel. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell so you know when I drop and you know when I go live. All right. I'll see you in the next video.